After the black wife's funeral, husband and mistress expect to cash in. The bank's revelation changes everything. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from today. She was born into a poor black family in a small town near Atlanta. From the time she was a little girl, Celeste knew the world was not always fair to people like her. But she never gave up. She worked very hard and never stopped dreaming big. By the time she turned 30 years old, Celeste had built a huge business. She didn't just have one company, she had many. She worked in computers, clothing, and buying and selling buildings. Celeste was not just rich, she was also a big example for other black girls. She showed everyone that even if life is hard, you can still do great things. Even though she had lots of money, Celeste never forgot where she came from. She wanted to help other black girls and women have better lives. She gave money for schools and college. She helped women start their own businesses. She made sure young black girls had people to look up to who looked like them. Helping others wasn't just something she did for fun, it was her big dream. She knew the world didn't always treat black women kindly, so she wanted to help change that. Celeste's husband was named Graham Morgan. He was a white man from a rich family. He grew up having everything he wanted. His family had money for a long time, so he didn't understand why Celeste worked so hard to help others. When he married her, he said it was because he loved her and thought she was strong and smart. But over time, he started to feel angry. He didn't like that Celeste was in charge. He was used to men making the rules and women following them. But Celeste didn't need his help. She made her own choices. She was the leader in their house and in her work. At the beginning of their marriage, they were happy and in love. But slowly things changed. Their marriage became like a job. They stayed together because people expected them to. They smiled at parties and events, but at home, they didn't talk much. They didn't feel close anymore. Then, there was a woman named Lydia. Lydia was not like Celeste. She was younger and always acted like she needed Graham. Lydia worked in one of Celeste's companies. She helped with news and events, but she wanted more. She wanted to live a rich life with fancy clothes and big trips on planes, and she knew how to get it. She thought Graham was her way to that life. Lydia was patient. She saw that Graham was getting more and more unhappy. At first, Graham didn't want to hurt Celeste. He still felt a little bad and remembered how they started. But Lydia kept telling him sweet things. She told him he was strong and important. She whispered, "She doesn't need you, Graham, but I do. If she was gone, you would be free." At first, Graham didn't listen. But as time went by and Celeste spent more time on her work and helping others, he started to believe it. He was angry that she had so much money and power. He didn't like that she made big choices without him. Then one day, Celeste started getting sick. She didn't talk about it to anyone. She liked to keep her problems to herself. But Graham noticed she was tired all the time. Sometimes she looked lost in her thoughts. She talked to doctors quietly, but never told him what they said. One night, when Celeste was at a meeting, Graham went into her study. He had never done that before. He opened her locked drawer and found papers from the doctor. It was worse than he thought. Celeste had a very bad sickness. It was rare, and the doctors said she only had a few months, maybe a year, to live. Graham should have felt sad, but instead, he had a different feeling. Hope. He thought, now I will be in charge. When he told Lydia, she was happy. She hugged him and said, "Soon we'll be free, Tom. We can leave and take everything." For the first time in a long time, Graham felt excited. He thought he would finally have all the money and power. But Celeste was smart. Even while she was going to work and helping people like nothing was wrong, she was making a plan. She knew Graham well. She had seen how he looked at her money. She saw that he didn't care about her dreams anymore. She knew that after she was gone, he would try to take everything. So she made a secret plan. She called her lawyer, a man she trusted for many years, and gave him clear instructions. She told him to change her will. A will is a paper that says who gets what after someone dies. She said, "Give everything to my foundation that helps Black women. Every company, every dollar, every building. Graham will only get a small amount, just enough for him to live, but nothing more." She had worked too hard to let him take it all. The lawyer looked surprised. He said, "Are you sure, Celeste? This is a big choice." Celeste gave him a strong smile and said, "I've never been more sure of anything." A few days later, Celeste sat in her office, looking out the window. She looked at the tall buildings in the city. She felt peaceful. She knew she didn't have much time left, but she wasn't scared anymore. What mattered most to her was that her work would go on. Her money and her success were never just for her. They were for helping people and making the world better. Graham didn't understand that. He thought it was all about power and being in charge, but he didn't know that no matter what he planned, he would never take her dream away. She had already made sure of that, and soon he would find out. Celeste Morgan died on a cool autumn morning. The sun had just started to rise when the news came out. People all over the world were shocked. News reporters talked in quiet and serious voices about Celeste and the amazing life she had lived. Celeste was a self-made billionaire. That means she worked very hard and made all her money on her own. She helped many Black women. She gave lots of money to help others and was kind to many people. On social media, people were sharing how Celeste's work had changed their lives. Some women said her foundation gave them scholarships so they could go to college. Others said they got money from her to start their own businesses. Everyone called her a smart and brave woman. She gave people hope and did things that many people thought were impossible. But inside the big, fancy house where she had lived, things were very different. The curtains were closed, and it was very quiet. No one there was crying. Graham Morgan, Celeste's husband, sat alone in his study. He held a glass of whiskey in his hand and listened to the TV from far away. The reporters were talking about Celeste's good work, but Graham wasn't listening. He was thinking about one thing: Celeste's money. For the first time in a long time, Graham felt free. He had spent the last 10 years living in Celeste's world. He had to pretend to be a loving husband while she became more and more famous. But now, she was gone. And that meant everything she owned, all her money, houses, and investments, would belong to him. He started dreaming about the future. He could almost see the money in the bank, the beautiful houses, the fancy things. It was all waiting for him. And once he had it, he would leave. He and Lydia would go far away. They would start a new life in a new place, away from Celeste's shadow and all the things she cared about more than him. That evening, Lydia came to the house. She wore a black dress to show respect, but she didn't look sad at all. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat next to Graham on the leather couch. She smiled. "So," she said, swirling the red wine in her glass, "when do we get the money?" Graham took a sip of his drink and let out a long breath. "Tomorrow, first thing in the morning. We'll go to the bank, the money will be moved to our account, and then we can start making plans." Lydia smiled bigger. "I've already started looking at new houses. Maybe in Paris, or somewhere warm. Monaco, or the Amalfi Coast, somewhere quiet." Graham nodded. He liked the sound of that. "Anywhere but here," he said. Lydia leaned closer. She ran her finger around the edge of her glass. "And you're sure everything is ready?" she asked. Graham laughed and put down his drink. "Of course. The will was written years ago. Celeste never changed it. She was too busy with her charities and businesses. The lawyers will take care of the paperwork, and then it's all ours." Lydia's eyes sparkled. "Finally," she whispered. Tomorrow, their new life would begin. The next morning, Graham wore his best suit. It was the same one he had worn to the funeral the day before. He wanted to look serious and proper, like a husband who was just trying to take care of his wife's things. Lydia looked perfect too. She wore a pretty but simple dress. She knew it was important to look the right way. They got to the bank just before noon. The building was big and fancy, made of shiny glass and marble. It looked very rich. As they walked in, Graham felt his heart beat faster. He couldn't wait. A well-dressed man came to greet them. He looked very kind and serious. "Mr. Morgan," he said, shaking Graham's hand, "we are so sorry for your loss. Mrs. Morgan was an amazing woman." Graham nodded and pretended to be sad. "Thank you," he said softly. Lydia stayed quiet, playing her part perfectly. The man led them through the bank. They passed through big doors and quiet hallways. Finally, they reached his office. The room was neat and full of books and papers. The man told them to sit down. Then he opened a big folder on his desk. "Now," he said, "we have gone through all of Mrs. Morgan's financial records. There are a few things we need to talk about." Graham nodded and tapped his fingers on the chair. "Of course," he said. "Let's begin." The man paused and fixed his glasses. "There is something we must talk about first," he said. Graham frowned. "Yes?" he asked. The man looked him straight in the eye. "Mrs. Morgan changed her will shortly before she passed away." For a second, Graham couldn't breathe. He didn't understand, but the serious look on the man's face made his stomach feel tight. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" Graham asked. The man cleared his throat. "A month before she died, Mrs. Morgan updated her will and made changes to her estate plans. Everything was done legally, and her personal lawyers helped her." Graham felt Lydia's body become very still next to him. He leaned forward, his voice sharp, and asked, "What did she change?" The bank manager looked through a folder until he found the right paper. Mrs. Morgan gave all her things, her money, her houses, her businesses, to a group she started for black women, he said. "The money will go to schools, business help, and homes for them." The room became very quiet. Graham held the armrest tightly. "What about me?" he asked. The manager didn't change his calm face. "As her husband, you will get a small amount of money each month for basic needs. But most of the money and things now belong to the group Mrs. Morgan started. She wanted this. No one can change it." Graham felt like someone had punched him. The room started spinning. He couldn't believe it. Years ago, he saw the will. It said everything would go to him. The money, the houses, everything. How did she do this? How did she plan so well to leave him with almost nothing? Across the desk, the manager closed the folder and put his hands together. "I know this is surprising, Mr. Morgan. If you need time to think," Lydia let out a loud laugh, full of shock. "This must be a mistake," she said. The manager still looked calm. "I promise, miss, it's not a mistake." Graham's jaw got tight. His eyes were full of anger. Celeste had done this on purpose. She knew what he would try to do, and she beat him, even though she was gone. Lydia's hands were in fists now, her nails dug into her palms. She turned to Graham with a cold voice. "You said everything was taken care of." Graham's mind was racing. There had to be a way to fix this. He had to challenge it somehow. But Lydia stood up quickly. "You lied to me." Graham turned toward her, his voice quiet. "Lydia, this isn't over." But she was already walking away from the desk. Her face changed, from shock to something harder and colder. Her next words were like a knife. "I didn't agree to this." She turned and walked out of the office. She didn't look back. Graham barely heard the manager talking as he stood up too. He moved without thinking. His hands felt numb. His mind was full of anger and confusion. Celeste had won. Even though she had passed away, she had ruined him. Graham Morgan walked out of the bank in a daze. The cold autumn air hit his face like a slap. He still couldn't believe what just happened. Celeste had outsmarted him even from the grave. He thought he would finally get his big pile of money. But now it was gone. Given away. Changed. Taken from him before he could even touch it. The city around him was loud, but it all sounded far away, like a dream, or a bad dream. He barely noticed Lydia walking fast down the sidewalk in front of him. Her shoes clicked loudly on the pavement. "Lydia," he called, his voice still full of shock. She didn't stop. "Lydia," he called again. She spun around so fast that a person walking nearby had to move aside not to bump into her. Her face was full of anger. "Don't," she said in a sharp voice. "Don't you dare try to explain this." Graham took a small step toward her and lowered his voice. "This isn't over. We can fight it with lawyers." She gave a dry, angry laugh and crossed her arms. "With what, Graham?" "You heard them. The will was changed. It's done. It can't be changed back. Do you really think you can go to court and take away what your rich wife wanted? Celeste planned this. She made sure you'd get almost nothing." Graham's face got red with anger. "I don't get nothing," he shouted. "I still get something." Lydia rolled her eyes and shook her head. "Oh, right," she said in a mocking voice. "A small allowance. That's what the man said. Just enough to live on. How nice of Celeste. Maybe you can rent a tiny apartment and buy a used car." "Lydia, listen to me." "No," she said, stepping back. "You lied to me, Graham. You promised me a big life. A good life. Do you know how long I've waited? How many years I've wasted waiting for you to take charge? And now you're telling me it was all for nothing?" Graham's hands were fists now. "I didn't know she did this." "And that's the problem," Lydia shouted. "She was smarter than you. She was always one step ahead of you. And now she's still ahead, even though she's not here anymore." Graham felt sick to his stomach. Her words were true. He just didn't want to believe them. Lydia looked at Graham for a long time. Her chest moved up and down as she took deep breaths. Then her face changed. She looked serious and upset. "I'm not staying here," she said. Her voice was cold and had no feeling. Graham looked confused. "What?" "I'm leaving," she said. She turned around and started walking away. This time, she walked faster. "Wait!" Graham called out, but Lydia didn't stop. "Lydia!" he shouted again, but she didn't even look back. Graham just stood there and watched her walk away. His heart was beating really fast. A few minutes ago, he thought she was his future, someone who gave him hope and made him feel better. But now, she was gone. Just like that. He let out a slow, shaky breath. His hands stayed in fists by his sides. Celeste had taken everything from him. Everything. The rest of the day felt like a dream. Graham walked around the city without a plan. He didn't want to go home. He didn't want to think about what had happened. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the bank manager's face. He heard the man's calm voice explaining what Celeste had done. Every time Graham thought about calling his lawyer, he felt crushed. There was no secret way out. There was no help. And the worst part? It wasn't just about the money. It was about how Celeste had tricked him for years. He always thought he was in control of his life. He believed everything would work out just the way he wanted. But now, standing all alone in the city, he understood the truth. This city still felt like it belonged to Celeste, not to him. He felt foolish. Celeste had always known the kind of man he was. She knew what he wanted, and she had made sure he would never get it. This truth sat heavy on his chest, like a thick fog he couldn't escape. When he finally felt too tired to walk anymore, he got into a cab and told the driver to take him to the Morgan estate. He didn't really notice the ride. He didn't even care about the big, tall gates when the car stopped in front of the huge house. The house used to feel like it was his. Now, it felt like an empty box. Inside, the house was dark and quiet. There were no voices, no lights, nothing. For years, Graham had hated this house. He hated how it always felt like Celeste's place, not his. But now, standing there, a new kind of anger grew inside him. Even though she was gone, this was still her house. Her name was on the papers. Her money had built it. Her choices made it what it was. And now, because of what she did before she died, Graham could never forget that. He walked through the house, past the big staircase, past the fancy living rooms, past the paintings of Celeste on the walls. He wanted to rip them all down. He wanted to destroy the whole house. But he didn't. Because what was the point? Celeste had already won, and he had already lost. That night, Graham sat alone in his study. A glass of whiskey sat on the table, but he didn't drink it. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. It was his lawyer. For a moment, a little hope lit up inside him. Maybe there was still a way to fix things. Maybe the lawyer had good news. He picked up the phone. "Graham," the lawyer said, "I guess you already know what happened." Graham let out a heavy breath. "I need options." There was a quiet pause. Then the lawyer said, "I'm sorry, but there aren't any." Graham gripped the phone harder. "There has to be something." "I read all the papers," the lawyer said. "Celeste did everything the right way. Her will is strong. There's no way to fight it in court. All her money and property now belong to the foundation. You'll still get a small payment each month, but that's all." Graham's jaw tightened. "Then what am I supposed to do?" The lawyer gave a long sigh. "Accept it, Graham. There's nothing else we can do." The call ended. Graham put the phone down and leaned back in his chair. He stared up at the ceiling. He had lost. Completely. That thought hit him hard, like a train. For the first time in years, Graham had no plan, no idea what to do next, no future to hope for. All he had left was the pain of losing and the memory of Celeste still haunting him. Graham had always thought that being rich meant having power. He believed that if he had money, he could control everything, people, love, even his own future. But now, sitting alone in the big empty house, the house that once felt like a prison, but now felt like a grave, he finally saw the truth. He had been wrong. Wrong. The next morning, after talking to his lawyer, Graham woke up with a headache. He had drunk too much whiskey, trying to forget everything. He walked slowly through the house, looking at the rooms like he had never seen them before. The shiny floors, the fancy chairs, the expensive paintings, they were all still there, but none of it belonged to him. It had always been hers. And now, without her, it all felt pointless. He stopped in front of one of Celeste's portraits. It was a big, fancy painting. Celeste had sat for it during a big party many years ago. In the painting, Celeste looked strong and graceful, like a queen. A lump grew in his throat. He stared at the picture. "You really planned all of this, didn't you?" he said softly, his voice dry and tired. Celeste knew Graham better than he knew himself. She saw that he could be weak. She saw that he was greedy and thought he deserved everything. She saw how he didn't like her being strong and doing well without him. Celeste knew a long time ago that once she was gone, Graham would try to take everything for himself. So she made sure to take it away before he could. Graham laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was dry and sad. For years, he thought he was the one waiting for Celeste to go away so he could finally enjoy life. But now, standing alone in the mess he made, he understood the truth. Celeste had been the one waiting for him to go away. And she had done it. A few days later, a letter came in the mail. It was from the lawyer. It said that all of Celeste's things, like her money and the big house, would go to a foundation, a group that helps people. Graham had to leave the mansion. It would soon belong to the people working for the foundation. Even though Graham knew this was going to happen, the words still hurt. He didn't know where he would live now. Celeste had left him just enough money to live a simple life, maybe rent a small apartment and buy food and clothes, but nothing fancy like before. He could try to start something new, maybe a business, but the truth was Graham had never built anything by himself. Everything he had was because of Celeste, and now she was gone. As Graham sat at his desk and looked at the letter again, his phone buzzed. He waited a moment, then answered. It was his daughter, Nia. Her voice sounded a little cold and far away. "Dad," she said. He paused. "You heard?" he asked, but he already knew the answer. "I did," she said. They were both quiet for a bit. "Are you calling to rub it in?" he asked. Nia sighed. "No, Dad, I'm calling because... I don't know. I guess I just wanted to hear what you were thinking." Graham felt a lump in his throat. What was he thinking? He had spent his whole life trying to get something that wasn't really his. He had been angry and greedy. He had forgotten that he once had a family, a wife who trusted him, a daughter who looked up to him. He threw all that away, and now he had nothing. He sighed and rubbed his face. I don't know, Nia. Nia was quiet again. Then she said, I saw what Mom did, the foundation. I think she knew this was going to happen, Dad. I think she knew you would try to take everything. She didn't want that to be how people remembered her. Graham gave a small, sad laugh. Yeah, she knew. Nia's voice got a little softer. Do you regret it? Did he? Graham thought about Lydia, the woman who had left him without even looking back. He thought about the calm bank manager who told him the truth, that he had no more power, no more money. He looked around the big, empty house. It was so quiet. There was nothing left for him to fight for. I don't know if regret can change anything, he said. But yeah, I think I do. There was another quiet moment, but this time it didn't feel cold. If you're staying in the city, Nia said, maybe we could, I don't know, have dinner sometime. Graham closed his eyes. Maybe she felt sorry for him. Maybe she was just doing what Celeste would have wanted. Celeste had always cared about family. Maybe Nia was giving him another chance, even if he didn't deserve it. He had nothing to lose now. Yeah, he said softly. I'd like that. The night of the dinner, Graham didn't wear a fancy suit. He didn't shine his shoes. He just wore something simple and comfortable. Nia had picked a small cafe in the city. It wasn't one of those fancy places he and Celeste used to go to. When he got there, Nia was already sitting at a table by the window. For the first time in a long time, he really looked at her. She was 27 now. Not the little girl who used to run into his office asking him to come play. She had grown up without him. She made a life all on her own. And still, she was here. Hey, she said when he sat down. Hey, he said back. A waiter came to take their order. They talked about small things, her job, her life, the foundation. Graham asked if she wanted to be part of it. Yes, Nia said. I want to do more. I want to keep Mom's work going. She didn't ask him what he was going to do. Maybe she knew he didn't have an answer. After dinner, they walked outside. Nia stopped and looked at him. I don't know what's going to happen, Dad, she said. But if you really mean it, if you really do regret it, maybe this doesn't have to be the end. Graham looked at her. She had her mother's fire in her eyes, the same strength Celeste had. Maybe for the first time, he had a chance to be someone different. Maybe he didn't have to be the man Celeste had outsmarted. Maybe he could be better. He nodded. I'd like that, he said. And this time, he really meant it. In the weeks that followed, things moved slowly. But that was okay. Graham needed it to be slow. He moved into a small apartment. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was enough. He watched from afar as Celeste's foundation grew. People still talked about her with love and respect. Her name was still known. Her work still helped people. Her legacy was strong. Graham didn't try to stop it anymore. He didn't fight it, because in the end, Celeste had won. And maybe, just maybe, that's how it was always meant to be. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.